She's the world straight.
Flight trajectory is.
Is this real?
Talking about hitting a bullet.
Get in the car.
If we get this wrong,
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
A House of Dynamite emerges as a bold and urgent vision from Kathryn Bigelow, an acclaimed director known for her meticulous approach to tension and her ability to portray high-stakes scenarios with unflinching realism. Following her critically celebrated work on films such as The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30, Bigelow returns with a project that is at once contemporary and timeless, exploring the terrifying fragility of global security in an age of nuclear uncertainty. The film was conceived in mid-2024, during a period of heightened geopolitical tension and growing public discourse about the dangers posed by nuclear arsenals. Bigelow, in collaboration with screenwriter Noah Oppenheim, sought to create a film that not only entertains as a thriller but also operates as a socio-political commentary, presenting the delicate balance of decision-making in the highest echelons of power as a lived, visceral experience. The narrative is structured in real time, a choice that amplifies tension and immerses the audience in a continuous, unrelenting countdown. By focusing on the 18 minutes following the detection of an intercontinental ballistic missile, the film situates the viewer within the heartbeat of the crisis, forcing them to confront the magnitude of decisions made in split seconds and the human cost of global power. The inception of the film was marked by careful casting choices, aiming to blend gravitas and relatability. Idris Elba was selected to portray the president, a figure tasked with embodying authority, vulnerability, and moral responsibility. Elba's performance carries the weight of the narrative, presenting a leader who must navigate incomplete information, conflicting intelligence, and the pressure of a nation's fate hanging in the balance. Rebecca Ferguson was cast as Captain Olivia Walker, the sharp and resolute officer in the White House Situation Room whose technical expertise and calm under pressure provide a counterbalance to the political and emotional intensity of the president's role. The interplay between these two central characters forms the backbone of the film, highlighting the interplay between human intuition and institutional procedure. Gabriel Basso, Jared Harris, Tracy Letts, Anthony Ramos, Moses Ingram, Jonah Hauer-King, Greta Lee, and Jason Clarke round out the ensemble, each contributing to a multifaceted depiction of the individuals responsible for safeguarding national security. The casting reflects a deliberate effort to present a spectrum of perspectives, from seasoned political strategists to young technical operatives, emphasizing the collective effort required to navigate a crisis of unprecedented scale. From the outset, the production team committed to authenticity in every aspect of the film. Extensive consultations with former military officials, intelligence analysts, and crisis management experts informed the portrayal of protocols, communication hierarchies, and technical procedures. The Situation Room, U.S. Strategic Command, STRATCOM, and other operational environments were recreated with painstaking detail, ensuring that the sets reflected both realism and dramatic functionality. Cinematographer Greg Fraser, known for his ability to combine intimate character work with sweeping, tension-filled visuals, was enlisted to craft the film's visual language. Fraser's approach uses a combination of tight, claustrophobic framing in the command centers to convey the pressure of decision-making, contrasted with wide, almost panoramic shots of missile trajectories and geopolitical maps, underscoring the scale of the threat. The film's sound design further intensifies the sense of immediacy, employing low-frequency rumblings, faint mechanical hums, and the escalating tones of alarms to communicate urgency and tension even in moments of relative visual calm. The narrative begins with a deceptively ordinary moment. Captain Olivia Walker assumes responsibility for the shift in the White House Situation Room. This transfer of command, routine under normal circumstances, is the prelude to extraordinary events. Intelligence reports are reviewed, communications channels are checked, and protocols followed, all establishing the grounded reality of institutional processes. At 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the sea-based X-band radar detects an unidentified ICBM over the northwestern Pacific, initially presumed to be a routine test from a foreign power. However, the missile's trajectory soon deviates, revealing a potential strike on Chicago, an imminent threat that transforms ordinary procedure into life-or-death urgency. The film meticulously charts each second, presenting the decisions, consultations, and emotional responses of every key figure involved. The narrative's tripartite structure divides the crisis into three simultaneous perspectives: the President's office, where ultimate responsibility must be borne, the military command centers, where strategy and feasibility are analyzed, and the Situation Room, where technical data is interpreted and communicated. By juxtaposing these viewpoints, the film portrays the multi-layered complexity of crisis management and emphasizes the human element behind procedural decision-making. Captain Walker's role is central to this portrayal. She embodies calm decisiveness, translating raw data into actionable intelligence while managing the stress and panic of those around her. Ferguson's performance highlights the intersection of professional competence and personal resilience, illustrating how frontline operators experience the crisis differently from those making policy-level decisions. Elba's president navigates not only the immediate tactical decisions but also the broader ethical and moral dimensions, whether to risk escalation, whether to act preemptively, and how to communicate with allies and adversaries under extreme time constraints. The supporting cast enhances this dynamic, providing varied perspectives that enrich the narrative. Jared Harris as the Secretary of Defense, for example, embodies the tension between military protocol and political consideration, while Tracy Letts' portrayal of the National Security Advisor emphasizes the psychological burden of counseling ultimate authority in a context where every choice carries existential consequences. The film's production journey itself mirrors the meticulousness seen in the narrative. Filming took place in locations selected for both realism and practical cinematic impact. Trenton, New Jersey, provided the backdrop for the Situation Room sequences, allowing the filmmakers to construct an environment that feels simultaneously authentic and cinematic. Advanced visual effects were integrated seamlessly with live-action shots to represent missile paths, radar overlays, and simulated nuclear threat scenarios, creating a sense of immediacy without resorting to over-sensationalization. The editing process reinforced this approach, with cross-cutting between simultaneous sequences maintaining narrative momentum and reflecting the interdependent nature of decisions made across different locations. Every frame was intended to remind the audience of the stakes involved, fostering a sense of continuous tension that mirrors the 18-minute real-time structure of the story. Thematically, A House of Dynamite explores several interwoven ideas. The fragility of global peace is central, with the narrative illustrating how quickly routine systems can escalate into potential catastrophe. It also examines the weight of human responsibility in an era where single decisions can affect millions of lives. The moral dilemmas faced by the president and his advisors highlight the tension between immediate safety, long-term consequences, and ethical imperatives. The film critiques institutional rigidity while simultaneously recognizing its necessity, creating a nuanced portrayal of governance under extreme pressure. Furthermore, the personal toll on individuals operating within these systems is explored through intimate moments of vulnerability and tension, emphasizing the human dimension behind national security operations. The release strategy for A House of Dynamite reflected its dual intent to reach a broad audience while maintaining prestige and critical visibility. Premiering at the 82nd Venice International Film Festival, the film positioned itself within the international cinematic conversation, showcasing its artistic ambition. Following this, a staggered release in select cinemas in the United Kingdom and the United States allowed for focused critical engagement before the global streaming debut on Netflix, ensuring accessibility while maintaining narrative impact. Critical reception emphasized the film's precision, tension, and sobering relevance. Reviews highlighted Elba's performance as a masterful portrayal of measured authority, Ferguson's role as emblematic of competence under pressure, and Bigelow's direction as a study in disciplined suspense. Audiences and critics alike recognized the film as more than a thriller. It functions as a commentary on contemporary geopolitics, ethical responsibility, and the human capacity to confront existential risk. As the missile detection escalates from a technical anomaly to a full-blown national crisis, the film's real-time structure intensifies. Each second becomes a battleground, not of weapons, but of decisions and human judgment. Captain Olivia Walker, having assumed command of the Situation Room shift, immediately convenes her team, analyzing radar data and cross-referencing intelligence feeds. The urgency of the situation is conveyed through rapid dialogue interspersed with moments of tense silence, emphasizing both the procedural rigor and the human strain. Walker's team is diverse, comprising seasoned officers, young analysts, and technical experts whose combined expertise forms the operational backbone of the government's response. Each character is given space to display their competence, worry, and occasional uncertainty, highlighting the multidimensional reality of crisis management. The camera lingers on their faces, capturing micro-expressions that reflect fear, focus, and the weight of potential catastrophe, creating a psychological intimacy that contrasts with the larger geopolitical threat. Simultaneously, in the U.S. Strategic Command, STRATCOM, facilities, military officers race to interpret the missile's trajectory and evaluate possible interception strategies. The film dedicates significant attention to the technical realities of missile defense, portraying radar triangulation, trajectory prediction, and strategic communication protocols with meticulous accuracy. Gabriel Basso's Lieutenant Commander Robert Reeves serves as a critical liaison, bridging the technical data with the decision-making hierarchy. Reeves' interactions reveal the tension between theoretical strategy and real-world constraints, illustrating that even precise calculations are subject to unpredictable variables and human limitations. The STRATCOM sequences are characterized by their kinetic energy, monitors flicker, alarms sound intermittently, and the camera constantly shifts between close-ups of worried officers and wide-angle shots of sprawling command centers. This visual strategy immerses viewers in the operational heartbeat of a military institution under existential pressure. Meanwhile, the president, portrayed by Idris Elba, embodies the human and moral dimension of the crisis. Unlike the procedural and technical focus of Walker and Reeves, the president's scenes explore the weight of ultimate authority. He is faced not only with immediate decisions regarding potential missile interception or evacuation orders but also with complex ethical considerations. Should a preemptive strike be authorized without absolute confirmation of the missile's origin? How can civilian safety be balanced against the risk of global escalation? These questions are not merely rhetorical, they manifest physically and emotionally in the film, as the president engages in intense private consultations with advisors, moments of silent reflection, and urgent communications with foreign allies. Elba's performance conveys both gravitas and vulnerability, humanizing the otherwise abstract concept of executive power under duress. The audience experiences the isolation inherent in leadership, the loneliness of decision-making where every choice carries irreversible consequences. The narrative's tension is further amplified through a sophisticated editing rhythm. Cross-cutting between the Situation Room, STRATCOM, and the President's office creates a tapestry of simultaneous pressures, emphasizing the interdependency of each actor's decisions. The film does not shy away from the dissonance that occurs when institutional perspectives clash. While technical advisors may prioritize accuracy and caution, political leaders must weigh perception, morale, and diplomatic fallout. This interplay reflects the multidimensional challenges of modern governance and crisis response, making the tension not only external but psychological and ethical. The narrative pace mirrors the relentless countdown of the missile, with every scene punctuated by the implicit awareness that failure or delay could result in catastrophe. Within this crucible, secondary characters are developed with nuance, providing both depth and texture to the unfolding crisis. Jared Harris's Secretary of Defense Reed Baker is a study in professional restraint and internal conflict, navigating the competing pressures of military protocol, political oversight, and public expectation. Tracy Lett's National Security Advisor acts as a moral and strategic sounding board for the president, simultaneously providing counsel and articulating the weight of national responsibility. Anthony Ramos portrays a young soldier in Alaska, whose perspective underscores the human cost of abstract policy decisions, reminding the audience that real lives hang in the balance. Moses Ingram and Jonah Hauer-King, as FEMA workers, represent the logistical and operational dimensions of emergency preparedness, grappling with the practicalities of mass evacuation and civil defense under extreme time constraints. Each character's arc is brief yet emotionally resonant, illustrating the multifaceted nature of crisis response, where every role, no matter how peripheral it may seem, contributes to the broader outcome. The film's visual and auditory design plays a crucial role in sustaining tension. Greg Fraser's cinematography uses a palette of muted tones, emphasizing the sterile, high-stakes environment of command centers, while occasional bursts of red from alerts and monitors punctuate the scenes with urgency. The camera frequently employs handheld movements during moments of heightened stress, imparting a sense of immediacy and instability that mirrors the characters' internal states. Sound design is equally meticulous. Low-frequency drones underscore the looming threat of destruction, while layered alarms, beeps, and communication chatter create a dense soundscape that immerses the audience in the sensory experience of crisis. Silence is used strategically, allowing moments of reflection and fear to resonate, amplifying tension through contrast rather than volume alone. As the missile's projected impact time nears, the narrative delves into the psychological and moral dilemmas faced by decision-makers. The president considers a range of options, from launching a counterstrike to ordering a mass evacuation, each with profound consequences. The film emphasizes the concept of uncertainty. Information is incomplete, intelligence reports are ambiguous, and the origin of the threat is unknown. This ambiguity drives both plot and character development, as actors must navigate a world where conventional rules do not apply, and where hesitation, misjudgment, or overconfidence could lead to annihilation. The audience is made to inhabit this uncertainty, experiencing the tension not as spectators of action but as participants in the cognitive and emotional struggle inherent in crisis management. One of the film's most striking sequences occurs when the Situation Room coordinates with STRATCOM to triangulate the missile's trajectory. The sequence is highly technical, yet the filmmakers translate complex procedures into dramatic narrative without sacrificing realism. The tension arises not from explosions or visual spectacle but from the stakes implicit in every decision, every calculation, communication, and command has life-or-death consequences. Captain Walker's leadership is central here, as she synthesizes disparate streams of data, communicates clearly under stress, and anticipates contingencies. Ferguson's performance conveys both intellectual precision and the human weight of responsibility, allowing audiences to appreciate the multifaceted challenges of technical command during a national emergency. Simultaneously, Elba's president confronts the limitations of authority. While he has ultimate decision-making power, he relies heavily on advisors, specialists, and institutional processes. The film underscores that leadership in such contexts is collaborative, and that even the most powerful individuals are constrained by information, time, and human fallibility. Private moments of reflection, Elba alone in his office, weighing ethical and strategic considerations, provide emotional depth and underscore the isolation inherent in command. These scenes serve as a counterpoint to the kinetic energy of operational sequences, balancing narrative intensity with psychological resonance. The narrative's culmination does not rely on spectacle alone but on the intricate interplay of decisions and consequences. By maintaining a real-time structure and emphasizing simultaneous perspectives, A House of Dynamite constructs suspense that is both intellectual and emotional. The audience witnesses the orchestration of multiple systems under duress, the clash of institutional priorities, and the human cost of abstract policy decisions. The resolution, while dramatic, is rooted in procedural and character-driven realism, reinforcing the film's overarching themes of responsibility, ethical judgment, and the precariousness of global security. As the clock relentlessly counts down, every moment becomes heavier with consequence. The missile, now confirmed to be on a direct trajectory toward Chicago, transforms abstract calculations into a palpable threat. The Situation Room is a hive of controlled panic, each operator acutely aware that a single misstep could have catastrophic consequences. Captain Olivia Walker, whose calm precision has anchored the room until now, begins issuing rapid-fire commands, prioritizing intelligence verification, coordinating with military liaisons, and managing the constant stream of incoming alerts. The dialogue here is punctuated with technical jargon, ICBM flight patterns, radar coordinates, projected impact probabilities, yet Bigelow's direction ensures clarity, translating complex information into understandable stakes for the audience. Each operator's face is a study in focus and fear, micro-expressions betraying the human strain beneath the institutional veneer. This attention to the psychological impact of responsibility is a hallmark of the film, illustrating that even in the most disciplined environments, the weight of potential catastrophe is unavoidable. Across the country, Stratcom facilities mirror this intensity, their vast networks of screens and controls pulsating with data. Lieutenant Commander Robert Reeves coordinates with his officers, running through contingency simulations at a pace dictated by the missile's trajectory. The film lingers on the meticulous precision of these operations. Every radar sweep, every trajectory prediction, and every communication with field units becomes a narrative beat, a reflection of the tension between human skill and technological reliability. The camera alternates between wide shots that capture the sprawling command centers and close-ups that focus on the minutiae of hands operating controls, fingers moving over keyboards, eyes scanning rapidly changing displays. This visual strategy amplifies suspense, making viewers viscerally feel the pressure of decisions unfolding in real time. Each sequence emphasizes that in crises of this magnitude, no detail is too small, and the margin for error is vanishingly thin. Meanwhile, the president faces an ethical and strategic crucible. Idris Elba's performance captures the immense internal conflict of a leader who must make irrevocable choices without full information. He reviews conflicting intelligence reports, debates potential courses of action with advisors, and considers the catastrophic ramifications of both action and inaction. One particularly tense sequence portrays the president in a private moment of reflection. He holds a photograph of his family while considering evacuation and retaliation options, a silent visual metaphor for the human cost behind political authority. The scene communicates the isolation inherent in command, emphasizing that the ultimate responsibility, unlike operational tasks, cannot be shared or delegated. The tension is not merely procedural, it is moral, philosophical, and deeply human. The film excels in showing how interconnected yet discordant the various centers of power can be under duress. In simultaneous sequences, Walker coordinates with Reeves, sending verified data and requesting rapid recalibrations of missile tracking, while the president weighs preemptive options. Communication glitches, information delays, and differing interpretations of the missile's trajectory introduce layers of complexity. These operational challenges are dramatized with near-constant cross-cutting, creating a narrative rhythm that mirrors the accelerating pulse of a ticking clock. Each camera transition serves to heighten suspense, immersing viewers in the uncertainty and interconnected chaos of high-stakes crisis management. The narrative demonstrates that decisions are never made in isolation, they are a product of human judgment constrained by time, information, and institutional structures. At the human level, secondary characters' arcs reach emotional peaks. The young FEMA workers, portrayed by Moses Ingram and Jonah Hauer-King, exemplify the tension between procedural training and real-world exigency. As evacuation orders are prepared, they confront both logistical challenges and moral dilemmas, prioritizing vulnerable populations, managing panicked civilians, and dealing with incomplete data under pressure. Their experiences underscore a central theme of the film: crises are lived differently at each level of responsibility, yet all are interdependent. Anthony Ramos' soldier character adds another layer, representing the personal stakes of individuals tasked with executing orders in distant locations, reinforcing that the consequences of national-level decisions ripple outward to affect ordinary lives. The missile approaches its target, and the narrative tension reaches near unbearable levels. The film intersperses technical detail with human drama, creating a dual-layered suspense. Captain Walker and her team work tirelessly to predict the missile's exact impact point, coordinating with civilian authorities and military units in a race against time. Simultaneously, the president must decide whether to authorize a defensive strike, potentially engaging nuclear assets in retaliation. The juxtaposition of these perspectives highlights a thematic contrast: operational precision versus moral deliberation. Each character's choices are weighted with ethical significance, reminding the audience that in crises involving mass destruction, technical skill alone is insufficient, judgment, empathy, and foresight are equally critical. Bigelow's direction ensures that the climactic sequences avoid sensationalized action in favor of tension rooted in realism. The missile's trajectory is visualized through augmented overlays, radar simulations, and trajectory projections, conveying the imminent threat without resorting to excessive visual spectacle. Close-ups of characters' eyes, hands, and subtle gestures dominate the screen, emphasizing psychological stakes over kinetic energy. The editing is precise, alternating between rapid, high-intensity sequences and brief, almost imperceptible pauses that allow the audience to absorb the gravity of the unfolding events. Sound design complements this rhythm, with low-frequency drones and intermittent alarm signals creating a sense of persistent unease, punctuated by silence that underscores the weight of pivotal decisions. As the missile nears Chicago, the narrative foregrounds moral tension. The president considers a preemptive strike but hesitates, aware that a miscalculation could escalate into full-scale nuclear war. Advisors debate various courses of action, some advocating immediate retaliation, others urging caution. Walker continues to feed precise data and predictive models to Stratcom, translating technical certainty into actionable intelligence. This interplay between human deliberation and technological capability is central to the film's thematic core. Even in an era dominated by precision instruments, human judgment remains the decisive factor. The audience is invited to consider the fragility of systems designed to prevent catastrophe, and the ways in which human error, miscommunication, or hesitation can amplify existential risk. In one particularly harrowing sequence, the missile appears to change course multiple times, creating a dynamic of suspense that is almost unbearable. The Situation Room reacts instantly, recalculating scenarios and preparing contingency plans. The president's office alternates between tense deliberation and moments of silent reflection. Every microsecond is significant, and Bigelow's commitment to real-time pacing ensures that the audience experiences events with the immediacy of the characters. The film's visual style, tight framing, close-ups, and overlapping audio cues, conveys the claustrophobic intensity of decision-making under duress. Even peripheral characters, who may only appear briefly on screen, are given narrative weight, illustrating that in a crisis, every action, observation, and communication carries potential consequence. The culmination of the crisis arrives with a complex, multi-layered resolution. Without revealing unnecessary spoilers, the film emphasizes that the outcome is determined not solely by technical capabilities but by human judgment, collaboration, and ethical discernment. The narrative does not provide simplistic resolution, instead, it conveys the nuanced reality of crisis management, where even success is tempered by the understanding of potential failure and the acknowledgement of lives affected by the threat. In doing so, A House of Dynamite transcends the thriller genre, functioning as a meditation on leadership, responsibility, and the fragile equilibrium of global security. Following the climax, the film dedicates significant attention to the immediate and psychological aftermath. Characters process the resolution differently, some display relief, others exhaustion, and still others lingering doubt and anxiety. These moments humanize the abstract concept of national security, portraying individuals who must reconcile professional success with personal trauma. The Situation Room and Stratcom personnel, while relieved, are acutely aware that the systems they manage remain vulnerable to future crises. The president reflects on the limitations of authority and the weight of decision-making, emphasizing the enduring moral and ethical implications of his choices. The film concludes on a contemplative note, reinforcing that the human dimension, the capacity for judgment, empathy, and resilience, is as critical as any technological or institutional safeguard in maintaining global stability. Upon its release, A House of Dynamite quickly became a focal point of international conversation, attracting attention not only from film critics and enthusiasts but also from global audiences whose daily lives are intertwined with the very geopolitical tensions depicted in the movie. The staggered release strategy, premiering first at the 82nd Venice International Film Festival, provided the film with a platform that emphasized artistic merit while simultaneously situating it within the larger discourse of contemporary cinema. Critics immediately praised the film for its meticulous craftsmanship and the intensity of its narrative structure, noting that Bigelow had once again demonstrated her mastery of suspense, character-driven storytelling, and the seamless integration of technical realism into cinematic tension. Audiences attending the Venice screenings reported palpable emotional responses, with many describing a visceral sense of urgency and anxiety, as if the ticking clock within the film's real-time structure extended beyond the screen and into the theater itself. The juxtaposition of institutional procedures, ethical dilemmas, and human vulnerability struck a chord, resonating with viewers who understood the stakes not as abstract but as potentially immediate realities in a world where geopolitical tensions remain unresolved and precarious. Following the festival premiere, the limited theatrical releases in the United Kingdom and United States provided an opportunity to observe audience reactions across multiple demographic and cultural contexts. In metropolitan centers such as London, New York, and Los Angeles, viewers expressed fascination with the detailed portrayal of crisis management, often discussing the characters' decisions and ethical conflicts during post-screening conversations. Social media platforms quickly became forums for debate, with viewers analyzing the plausibility of military protocols, the realism of radar tracking sequences, and the weight of the president's moral deliberations. In countries such as Canada, Germany, and Australia, audiences similarly engaged with the film not only as entertainment but as a reflection of international security concerns, sparking discussions on nuclear policy, the role of leadership in high-stakes scenarios, and the psychological impact of responsibility on decision-makers. These discussions underscored the film's capacity to bridge entertainment and intellectual engagement, encouraging a deeper consideration of the consequences of political and military actions that, while dramatized, remain rooted in contemporary global realities. Streaming performance following the Netflix release on October 24, 2025, further expanded the film's reach, making it accessible to millions of households worldwide. The film rapidly trended on multiple platforms, with analytics indicating particularly high engagement in North America, Europe, and parts of Asia. Viewership statistics revealed a demographic skew toward adults aged 25 to 55, reflecting the film's appeal to audiences interested in political thrillers, ethical decision-making narratives, and realistic portrayals of high-pressure environments. Interestingly, younger viewers, particularly those in the 18 to 24 age range, also engaged with the film, often drawn by the ensemble cast, particularly the performances of Idris Elba and Rebecca Ferguson, as well as the technical authenticity of the missile tracking sequences. Discussions in online forums frequently highlighted how the film's real-time narrative created an immersive experience, with viewers noting that the continuous, unbroken escalation of tension mirrored the anxiety one might feel if confronted with a real-world nuclear threat. Educational institutions and think tanks even incorporated segments of the film into seminars on crisis management, ethics, and leadership, underscoring its broader cultural resonance and intellectual utility beyond traditional entertainment contexts. The box office performance of A House of Dynamite, while intentionally limited due to the staggered release strategy, reflected strong engagement in urban markets, particularly in theaters with larger screens and advanced audio capabilities, where the sound design and visual effects could be fully appreciated. Audiences repeatedly noted that the combination of detailed radar graphics, realistic communications protocols, and the immersive soundscape contributed to an unparalleled sense of immediacy. Ticket sales data indicated multiple repeat viewings in certain urban centers, suggesting that the film's complexity and attention to detail encouraged viewers to rewatch sequences to fully appreciate the interplay of narrative threads and character decisions. In international markets, cultural and political context played a role in reception. In regions with heightened awareness of military strategy or geopolitical tension, such as South Korea and Japan, the film was received with particular attention to technical accuracy and strategic plausibility, while European audiences frequently engaged with the ethical and psychological dimensions, focusing on the president's decision-making and the human cost of bureaucratic procedure. Critical response mirrored audience engagement, with widespread praise for Bigelow's direction and the performances of the principal cast. Reviews emphasized the film's capacity to maintain suspense without resorting to conventional action movie spectacle, highlighting the effectiveness of tension derived from ethical dilemmas, procedural complexity, and real-time pacing. Idris Elba's portrayal of the president was consistently described as commanding, nuanced, and emotionally resonant, capturing the duality of authority and vulnerability inherent in leadership. Rebecca Ferguson's performance as Captain Olivia Walker was lauded for its precision, intensity, and ability to convey both intellectual mastery and human empathy. Critics noted that the film's ensemble cast created a cohesive portrayal of an interconnected network of responsibility, with each character's contribution integral to the narrative tension. Secondary performances, such as those of Gabriel Basso, Jared Harris, and Tracy Letts, were praised for providing depth, highlighting the layered nature of decision-making under extreme pressure, and illustrating the interplay between technical expertise and moral judgment. International critics also engaged with the film on a thematic level, interpreting it as a meditation on the fragility of global systems and the existential weight of nuclear weapons in modern society. In the United Kingdom, reviewers highlighted the film's ability to humanize the abstract and technical aspects of missile defense, showing the personal stakes behind seemingly impersonal procedures. German and French critics drew attention to the psychological realism of the characters, particularly the tension between institutional protocol and individual ethical judgment. Asian critics, including those in South Korea and Japan, emphasized the plausibility of the technical sequences, praising the meticulous attention to radar tracking, trajectory prediction, and interagency communication. Across these diverse contexts, the film was consistently recognized for its capacity to entertain while simultaneously provoking reflection on contemporary issues of security, governance, and ethical responsibility. Box office data, combined with streaming analytics, suggested that A House of Dynamite achieved a rare balance between commercial engagement and intellectual stimulation. The film's narrative complexity, coupled with a focus on realistic depiction of high-stakes decision-making, contributed to repeated viewings and sustained discussion across media platforms. Analysts observed that its real-time structure, combined with meticulous attention to technical detail and human psychology, created a cinematic experience that demanded active engagement rather than passive consumption. This approach, while potentially limiting appeal to audiences seeking conventional action-oriented spectacle, enhanced the film's critical and cultural impact, cementing its reputation as a sophisticated thriller that functions on multiple levels: narrative, psychological, ethical, and educational. Audience engagement extended beyond formal reviews, with social media and online discussion forums providing a rich repository of commentary and analysis. Viewers dissected sequences in granular detail, often creating annotated breakdowns of radar simulations, communications protocols, and character decision points. Some enthusiasts developed interactive timelines to track the real-time events within the film, while others debated the ethical implications of specific decisions, reflecting a deeper engagement with the content than typical for contemporary thrillers. Educational institutions leveraged these discussions to frame seminars on crisis management, leadership, and ethics, integrating clips from the film into lesson plans to illustrate the tension between procedural accuracy and moral judgment. This educational engagement highlighted the film's broader impact, demonstrating that A House of Dynamite extends beyond entertainment into realms of public discourse, policy discussion, and ethical reflection. In analyzing A House of Dynamite from a cinematic standpoint, critics and scholars alike have highlighted the meticulous craftsmanship evident in every frame, sound cue, and narrative beat. Catherine Bigelow's directorial approach demonstrates a rare synthesis of technical realism and narrative tension, where suspense is generated not through explosions or visual spectacle but through the careful orchestration of human behavior under extreme pressure. Cinematographer Greg Fraser's contribution to the visual language of the film is particularly notable. Fraser employs a muted color palette dominated by grays, blues, and the occasional stark red accent, which collectively convey the sterile, high-stakes environment of command centers and intelligence rooms while maintaining a visual cohesion that underscores the gravity of the narrative. The lighting design is carefully calibrated. Fluorescent overtones simulate institutional lighting in operational spaces, creating a realistic atmosphere, while subtle shifts in brightness accentuate moments of heightened tension or revelation. Fraser's choice of framing and camera movement further enhances immersion. Tight close-ups on operators' faces, hands over keyboards, and eyes scanning monitors convey the granular focus required for decision-making, while occasional wide-angle shots provide viewers with spatial context, emphasizing the scale and complexity of the operational environment. The editing, orchestrated to reinforce the real-time narrative structure, is an exemplary study in rhythm and pacing. Cross-cutting between the Situation Room, U.S. Strategic Command, and the President's office creates a dynamic interplay of perspectives, allowing the audience to inhabit multiple simultaneous vantage points. Each cut serves a deliberate purpose, alternating between high-tension rapid sequences and brief, almost imperceptible pauses that accentuate the weight of key decisions. This rhythm mirrors the real-time unfolding of events, reinforcing the sense of immediacy and continuous pressure. The film avoids conventional cinematic relief, instead maintaining tension through character psychology, ethical dilemmas, and procedural stakes, which is a testament to Bigelow's disciplined direction and understanding of suspense as a function of human experience rather than merely visual spectacle. Sound design plays a similarly pivotal role in reinforcing the immersive experience. The film's auditory landscape is rich with layered textures, the low-frequency hum of operational systems, intermittent alarms signaling anomalies, rapid communication exchanges, and subtle environmental noises that create a sense of place and urgency. Silence is employed strategically, often during private reflections of key characters, emphasizing moments of moral contemplation or emotional vulnerability. The interplay of sound and silence not only enhances suspense but also provides psychological insight, allowing viewers to experience the cognitive and emotional weight of leadership under duress. The careful integration of dialogue, diegetic sounds, and ambient noise constructs a soundscape that mirrors the film's visual tension, creating an encompassing sensory experience that reinforces both realism and narrative immersion. Performance analysis reveals a deliberate layering of emotional and intellectual complexity. Idris Elba's portrayal of the president is widely regarded as a masterclass in restraint and gravitas. His performance balances authoritative presence with moments of introspection and vulnerability, reflecting the duality of leadership in situations of extreme uncertainty. Elba communicates the enormity of responsibility through subtle expressions, controlled vocal modulation, and purposeful physicality, allowing the audience to perceive the cognitive burden without overt dramatization. Rebecca Ferguson's Captain Olivia Walker provides a complementary counterpoint, embodying precision, technical mastery, and emotional resilience. Her performance illustrates how frontline operators must navigate operational demands while maintaining psychological equilibrium, highlighting the interplay between expertise and empathy. Supporting performances, such as those of Jared Harris, Tracy Letts, and Gabriel Basso, add depth and texture, portraying a network of interdependent decision-makers, each contributing to the narrative tension in unique ways. The ensemble functions cohesively, illustrating that the resolution of complex crises relies on both individual skill and collective coordination. From a narrative perspective, the film's real-time structure is its most distinctive element, enhancing both suspense and thematic resonance. By focusing on an 18-minute window during which a nuclear threat looms, Bigelow creates a temporal pressure that mirrors the psychological stakes of decision-making in high-stakes scenarios. The narrative architecture allows the audience to inhabit multiple layers of perspective simultaneously, juxtaposing operational, political, and personal considerations. This multiplicity underscores a central theme: crises of monumental consequence are rarely linear or isolated, and every decision reverberates across both institutional and human dimensions. The continuous escalation of tension, facilitated by editing, sound design, and performance, transforms the film into an experiential study of urgency, responsibility, and human frailty under pressure. Thematically, A House of Dynamite operates on multiple levels. On the surface, it is a political thriller exploring nuclear crisis management, yet beneath this lies a profound meditation on ethical responsibility, leadership, and human agency. The film interrogates the tension between institutional protocol and individual judgment, demonstrating that while procedures are essential for order, moral and cognitive discernment remain irreplaceable. Characters are consistently faced with dilemmas that lack clear answers, whether to act preemptively or wait for verification, how to balance public safety against global escalation, and how to reconcile professional duty with personal conscience. These dilemmas are amplified by the real-time narrative, which forces both characters and audiences to grapple with uncertainty, highlighting the psychological and moral consequences of decision-making under pressure. The film also explores the human cost of institutional responsibility, depicting moments of personal vulnerability and exhaustion alongside operational competence, emphasizing that ethical and emotional resilience are inseparable from technical expertise. Cultural significance is a critical dimension of the film's impact. Released during a period of heightened global awareness regarding nuclear proliferation and international tension, A House of Dynamite resonated as more than mere entertainment. In academic, policy, and public spheres, the film sparked discussions about crisis preparedness, the concentration of decision-making authority, and the ethical imperatives inherent in safeguarding populations under existential threat. Its portrayal of collaborative problem-solving across military, technical, and political domains has been cited as a valuable case study for leadership and ethics courses, illustrating the intricate balance between procedural rigor and human judgment. Moreover, the film's depiction of psychological strain among leaders and operators challenged traditional cinematic portrayals of authority figures, emphasizing vulnerability, cognitive burden, and the weight of moral accountability. Across international contexts, audiences engaged with the film as both a mirror and a lens, reflecting contemporary anxieties and providing a narrative through which to examine the fragility and complexity of global systems. Awards and recognition further solidified the film's status as a culturally and critically significant work. Nominations at the Venice International Film Festival for the Golden Lion, coupled with accolades from the Middleburg Film Festival for screenwriting and performance, underscored the industry's acknowledgement of the film's technical mastery, narrative depth, and thematic resonance. Critics and juries highlighted Bigelow's disciplined direction, the ensemble's compelling performances, and the film's capacity to maintain suspense through intellectual and emotional engagement rather than conventional spectacle. The award's trajectory, combined with widespread critical acclaim, affirmed the film's dual achievement, succeeding both as a cinematic thriller and as a thought-provoking exploration of ethical and psychological dimensions in crisis contexts. The long-term impact of A House of Dynamite extends into multiple domains. Cinematically, it has influenced subsequent political thrillers and high-stakes procedural dramas, inspiring filmmakers to explore tension through ethical complexity and real-time pacing rather than action-driven spectacle. Public discourse surrounding leadership, ethical responsibility, and crisis management has referenced the film, with educators, analysts, and policymakers noting its utility in illustrating abstract principles through concrete narrative scenarios. The film's integration of realistic procedural detail with human psychology has also contributed to its pedagogical value, serving as a tool for leadership training, crisis simulation exercises, and ethical decision-making workshops. The interplay of technical accuracy, moral exploration, and human drama ensures that the film remains a reference point for discussions on the ethical, psychological, and operational dimensions of contemporary global crises. Beyond its immediate reception and critical acclaim, A House of Dynamite has been analyzed for the intricate ways in which it interweaves character psychology with thematic depth, creating a narrative that resonates both emotionally and intellectually. Captain Olivia Walker's arc, for instance, provides a compelling lens through which the audience experiences the procedural and ethical demands of crisis management. Her composure under pressure, combined with moments of introspection and emotional vulnerability, illustrates a duality central to the film's thematic core, the tension between human limitation and professional responsibility. Ferguson's portrayal emphasizes that technical competence is inseparable from psychological resilience. Every command issued, every decision relayed, carries not only operational consequence but moral weight. As the narrative progresses, Walker confronts dilemmas that challenge her understanding of authority and responsibility, forcing the audience to consider the ways in which institutional procedure both supports and constrains human judgment. Her evolution throughout the crisis, from procedural adherence to adaptive problem-solving, exemplifies the film's broader meditation on the interplay of structure and agency in high-stakes scenarios. Similarly, the president's journey embodies the moral and ethical complexity inherent in leadership. Idris Elba's nuanced performance captures the simultaneous necessity for decisiveness and the burden of uncertainty. The narrative deliberately places the president in situations where every available course of action is fraught with potential catastrophe, highlighting the tension between strategic reasoning and human empathy. These sequences underscore a recurring motif, that leadership, particularly in crises involving existential threats, requires an intimate understanding of both systemic mechanisms and human consequences. The film's depiction of this dual responsibility, the need to maintain institutional stability while acknowledging the human impact of decisions, is rendered with precision, creating a layered portrayal of authority that resonates beyond the screen, prompting reflection on real-world governance and ethical responsibility. The supporting cast further enriches the narrative tapestry, contributing to both operational realism and thematic exploration. Jared Harris's Secretary of Defense serves as a narrative bridge between military protocol and political strategy, illustrating the friction that can occur when hierarchical structures and ethical considerations intersect. Tracy Letts' National Security Advisor embodies the moral compass of the administration, providing counsel that is both analytically sound and ethically grounded. Gabriel Basso's Lieutenant Commander Robert Reeves represents the technical execution of strategy, emphasizing the interdependence of expertise and judgment. Each character's interactions underscore the collaborative nature of crisis resolution, highlighting that no single individual can bear the burden of consequence alone. The ensemble's cohesion reflects Bigelow's directorial philosophy. Tension is amplified not only through individual stakes but through the interplay of diverse perspectives, each constrained by expertise, information, and ethical considerations. Production insights reveal that the film's immersive realism is the result of deliberate choices in set design, technical consultation, and visual storytelling. The Situation Room, reconstructed in Trenton, New Jersey, was designed to replicate both the physical space and operational workflow of a high-level crisis center. Props, communication equipment, and data displays were meticulously sourced or fabricated to mirror authentic interfaces, ensuring that actors could interact with their environment in a manner consistent with real operational practice. Consultants with experience in military strategy, intelligence analysis, and crisis management were brought in to advise on procedural accuracy, from command hierarchies to communication protocols. This attention to authenticity allowed the filmmakers to balance narrative clarity with technical fidelity, ensuring that dramatic tension remained grounded in realistic operational constraints. Fraser's cinematography complemented these production choices, using camera angles and movement to highlight both the procedural environment and the emotional stakes of characters, creating a visual language that reinforces the film's thematic and psychological resonance. The film's approach to visualizing technological and procedural complexity has been widely praised. Missile trajectories, radar overlays, and communications networks are rendered with clarity and precision, providing audiences with an understanding of the stakes without requiring specialized knowledge. These visualizations are not merely aesthetic, they serve a narrative function, allowing viewers to comprehend the implications of real-time decisions and the cascading consequences of action or inaction. By translating abstract technical information into a visual and narrative language accessible to general audiences, the film bridges the gap between operational realism and dramatic engagement, demonstrating that technical accuracy and narrative clarity are mutually reinforcing rather than mutually exclusive. Audience interpretation has been enriched by these layers of realism and thematic depth. Social media discourse, online forums, and critical essays reflect sustained engagement with the film's ethical, psychological, and strategic questions. Viewers frequently debate the plausibility of the missile threat, the timing of decisions, and the balance of risk between preemptive action and restraint. Ethical questions dominate discussions. Was the president justified in hesitating? Did Captain Walker make the right calls under pressure? And how do institutional constraints influence moral responsibility? Such discourse underscores the film's success in creating a narrative that functions as a living thought experiment, prompting audiences to consider not only what might happen in a crisis but what they themselves would do if faced with similarly high-stakes decisions. Geopolitical reflection forms a critical component of the film's resonance. By situating the narrative within the context of contemporary nuclear proliferation and international tension, the film draws attention to the precariousness of global stability. The missile threat, while fictional, mirrors real-world anxieties about emergent nuclear capabilities and the risks associated with miscommunication, technical failure, or misjudgment in high-stakes international affairs. International audiences, particularly in regions with heightened awareness of military strategy, responded to these elements with both fascination and reflection, often discussing the plausibility of strategic scenarios and the ethical considerations implicit in nuclear deterrence theory. The film's ability to translate complex geopolitical dynamics into a narrative that is emotionally and psychologically compelling demonstrates its significance not only as a cinematic work but also as a tool for public understanding of high-stakes global issues. The ethical dimensions of the film are amplified through recurring motifs and narrative devices. Real-time sequences, cross-cutting perspectives, and sustained tension create a scenario in which characters must make rapid decisions with incomplete information. This narrative strategy foregrounds the ethical dilemmas inherent in leadership under uncertainty, emphasizing that even well-informed decisions may result in unintended consequences. By allowing the audience to witness these dilemmas intimately, through facial expressions, hesitations, and private moments of reflection, the film fosters a form of ethical empathy, enabling viewers to appreciate the cognitive and emotional weight of responsibility at the highest levels. The interplay of procedural rigor and moral deliberation becomes a central thematic concern, reflecting broader societal questions about the delegation of authority, accountability, and the human cost of political and military decision-making. Cultural resonance extends beyond immediate critical and audience reception. Educational institutions have incorporated segments of the film into courses on leadership, ethics, and international relations, using the narrative as a case study in decision-making under pressure. Military academies and crisis management programs have similarly leveraged the film's realistic depiction of operational protocols to facilitate discussions on strategy, coordination, and communication. Beyond formal education, the film has been cited in public discourse as a catalyst for reflection on the balance between technological capability and human judgment, the moral responsibility of leaders, and the psychological burden of authority in existentially risky scenarios. In this sense, A House of Dynamite operates as a cultural artifact, bridging entertainment, pedagogy, and social reflection in a manner rarely achieved in contemporary cinema. The intersection of narrative realism, ethical exploration, and audience engagement has ensured that the film's impact extends into long-term discourse on cinematic form and thematic relevance. Filmmakers and scholars have cited the film as an exemplar of how suspense can be generated through intellectual and emotional stakes rather than conventional action sequences, demonstrating the potential for political thrillers to operate as profound studies of human psychology, ethical judgment, and systemic complexity. The film's real-time structure, interwoven character perspectives, and procedural fidelity collectively contribute to a cinematic methodology that prioritizes experiential immersion and moral contemplation, influencing subsequent productions seeking to achieve similar narrative and thematic depth. In addition to its narrative and thematic complexity, A House of Dynamite has been widely acclaimed for its technical execution, which combines cinematography, sound design, visual effects, and editing into a seamless, immersive experience. Greg Fraser's cinematography plays a crucial role in sustaining narrative tension while highlighting character psychology. The film's visual language is characterized by its strategic use of tight framing, depth of field manipulation, and controlled camera movement, all of which reinforce both the claustrophobia of command centers and the expansive scale of geopolitical stakes. Close-ups on operator hands, eyes, and subtle facial micro-expressions allow viewers to experience the minutiae of high-stakes decision-making, while panoramic shots of missile tracking screens, maps, and international locations convey the breadth of the threat. The interplay of tight and wide shots mirrors the dual narrative focus of the film, the micro-level precision of operational management and the macro-level consequences of each decision. Sound design further amplifies the immersive quality of the film. The auditory landscape combines diegetic and non-diegetic elements in a manner that reflects both realism and dramatic intention. Hum of computer systems, the intermittent blip of radar signals, and the layered chatter of communication lines create a continuous sense of operational urgency. These are punctuated by silence during moments of private reflection, creating a psychological contrast that enhances tension and underscores the moral and emotional weight of leadership decisions. Critics have noted that the sound design functions as a narrative device in its own right, shaping audience perception of time, urgency, and cognitive load in ways that traditional visual storytelling alone could not achieve. The auditory and visual interplay is particularly evident during real-time sequences where cross-cutting between the Situation Room, Stratcom, and the President's office requires both careful spatial orientation and interpretive understanding of multiple concurrent streams of information. Visual effects are integrated with an emphasis on authenticity rather than spectacle. Missile trajectories, radar overlays, and data visualizations are rendered with precision to reflect real-world operational systems, providing viewers with a sense of the technical rigor underlying decision-making. These sequences, while visually striking, serve primarily to communicate stakes and facilitate comprehension, reinforcing the film's central focus on human judgment and ethical responsibility rather than relying solely on visual drama. Bigelow's insistence on procedural fidelity, supported by consultants with military and intelligence expertise, ensures that each visual element has both narrative and operational legitimacy. This approach has been cited in scholarly and industry analyses as a model for integrating technical accuracy into cinematic storytelling, demonstrating that immersive realism can enhance suspense without resorting to exaggeration or sensationalism. Philosophically, A House of Dynamite engages deeply with questions of ethical responsibility, human agency, and systemic complexity. The film interrogates the tension between procedural adherence and moral discernment, illustrating that institutions, while designed to manage risk, cannot absolve individuals of ethical responsibility. Through its real-time narrative and multi-perspective structure, the film encourages audiences to grapple with uncertainty, emphasizing that even well-informed, technically precise decisions may carry unintended consequences. Ethical dilemmas are a recurring motif: the president's hesitation, Walker's calculated interventions, and the advisory discussions each illustrate the inherent difficulty of reconciling operational necessity with moral imperatives. Philosophical discourse surrounding the film has drawn on theories of consequentialism, deontology, and virtue ethics, framing it as a contemporary exploration of the moral burden inherent in leadership under existential threat. Scholars and critics alike have emphasized the film's capacity to stimulate reflection on these issues, reinforcing its relevance beyond the cinematic medium into philosophical, educational, and policy discussions. Public discourse around the film has been particularly robust, extending into debates about contemporary geopolitics, crisis preparedness, and the ethical limits of authority. Social media discussions, opinion editorials, and academic essays frequently analyze the plausibility of depicted protocols, the ethics of preemptive action, and the psychological burden borne by individuals in positions of power. The film has catalyzed conversations regarding the human dimensions of leadership and the importance of cognitive and emotional preparedness in high-stakes decision-making. In some instances, policymakers and analysts have referenced the film as an illustrative tool in discussions of nuclear deterrence, command responsibility, and systemic vulnerabilities, highlighting its crossover impact into spheres of real-world strategic consideration. Awards recognition has further cemented the film's status as both an artistic and intellectually significant work. Nominations at the Venice International Film Festival for the Golden Lion, coupled with recognition for direction, screenplay, and ensemble performance, illustrate the industry's acknowledgement of Bigelow's craft and thematic ambition. Subsequent accolades at international film festivals in Toronto, London, and Tokyo reinforced the film's global resonance, with particular praise for its ability to maintain suspense through ethical and psychological complexity rather than conventional action-driven spectacle. Performance awards for Idris Elba and Rebecca Ferguson recognized the subtlety, intensity, and authenticity of their portrayals, emphasizing the importance of character-driven storytelling in conveying narrative stakes. Technical awards for cinematography, sound design, and visual effects underscored the film's achievement in integrating operational realism with narrative clarity, a combination that has influenced critical discourse on best practices in cinematic storytelling for thrillers and dramas. The long-term influence of A House of Dynamite is evident both within cinema and in broader cultural, educational, and policy contexts. Filmmakers have cited the film as an exemplar of real-time narrative construction, demonstrating how suspense can be achieved through psychological and ethical tension rather than relying solely on kinetic action. Educational institutions have integrated the film into curricula focused on leadership, crisis management, ethics, and decision-making, leveraging its depiction of operational rigor, moral ambiguity, and psychological strain as case studies for analysis and discussion. Policy and strategic think tanks have utilized the film as a tool to illustrate the human dimensions of crisis management, particularly in contexts involving nuclear risk or high-stakes decision-making under uncertainty. The sustained engagement of audiences, scholars, and practitioners alike indicates that the film's impact extends beyond entertainment, functioning as a cultural and intellectual artifact that bridges cinematic artistry, ethical reflection, and practical understanding of global crises. In conclusion, A House of Dynamite represents a landmark achievement in contemporary cinema, combining technical precision, narrative sophistication, ethical depth, and cultural resonance. Its meticulous integration of cinematography, sound design, visual effects, and editing creates an immersive experience that engages viewers both emotionally and intellectually. The performances of Idris Elba, Rebecca Ferguson, and the supporting ensemble provide layered characterizations that reflect the psychological and moral complexities of leadership and crisis management. The film's real-time structure and multi-perspective narrative illuminate the challenges inherent in decision-making under extreme pressure, emphasizing the interplay of technical skill, ethical discernment, and human judgment. Its reception, critical, commercial, and educational, demonstrates its relevance as both entertainment and a tool for reflection on leadership, ethics, and global security. Ultimately, A House of Dynamite achieves a rare synthesis of cinematic mastery, intellectual engagement, and cultural significance, securing its place as a definitive study of tension, responsibility, and the human condition in the face of existential threat. The narrative of A House of Dynamite unfolds in a meticulously structured sequence of interlocking events, designed to sustain tension while providing comprehensive insight into character, procedure, and consequence. The opening sequence immediately establishes both the operational framework and the stakes of the story. A radar anomaly is detected, initially appearing as a technical glitch, but it quickly escalates into a confirmed missile threat. The film's real-time pacing immerses viewers from the first frame, juxtaposing the cold precision of operational systems with the human reactions of those monitoring them. Captain Olivia Walker, as the principal point of contact for data analysis, is introduced in this sequence, her controlled demeanor and acute focus establishing her credibility as a highly trained professional whose judgment will carry immense weight throughout the unfolding crisis. The sequence is accompanied by a layered soundscape. Low-frequency drones underscore the latent threat, punctuated by intermittent system beeps and alarms that mirror the urgency building within the narrative. As the Situation Room convenes, the narrative introduces additional key figures whose perspectives will intersect throughout the film. Lieutenant Commander Robert Reeves is shown coordinating with technical staff, analyzing radar trajectories and cross-referencing multiple intelligence sources. His interactions emphasize the interplay between calculated precision and the pressure of imminent consequence. The President, portrayed by Idris Elba, is introduced in parallel sequences, balancing the immediate political and ethical ramifications of the missile threat with the weight of executive authority. These early scenes establish the film's central thematic triad, the interdependence of operational expertise, ethical judgment, and leadership under duress. The juxtaposition of these narrative threads, achieved through deft cross-cutting and strategic pacing, ensures that tension accumulates organically, drawing the audience into the layered complexity of high-stakes crisis management. Subsequent sequences expand upon the technical and operational dimensions of the narrative. The missile trajectory is traced in detailed visualizations, illustrating its potential impact zones and probabilistic outcomes. These sequences, while visually compelling, also serve a narrative function. They create a framework within which human judgment and ethical deliberation are dramatized. Captain Walker must interpret the data accurately and communicate it effectively to both military command and civilian leadership, highlighting the role of precision and clarity in crisis resolution. The narrative consistently emphasizes that while technology provides critical insights, human interpretation remains indispensable, reinforcing the film's exploration of agency and responsibility. The tension escalates through iterative updates, recalculations, and simulated contingencies, each of which demonstrates the fragility of decision-making under time constraints. The President's narrative thread deepens the ethical and psychological stakes. Early consultations with advisors depict the complexity of balancing strategic considerations with moral imperatives. Dialogue in these scenes is deliberate, reflecting the weight of deliberation. Should a preemptive strike be authorized without full confirmation of the missile's origin? How can civilian safety be maximized without risking global escalation? These questions are interwoven with private moments of reflection, in which the President confronts the personal and emotional consequences of potential decisions. Elba's performance emphasizes restraint, conveying authority while simultaneously revealing vulnerability. The audience witnesses not just procedural decision-making but the moral and cognitive burden inherent in leadership during existential crises. Parallel narratives focus on secondary characters who illuminate additional dimensions of the crisis. FEMA operatives, portrayed by Moses Ingram and Jonah Hauer-King, are shown coordinating logistical measures for civilian protection, grappling with incomplete data, panicked populations, and limited resources. These sequences provide a grounded perspective, illustrating that decisions made in high-level command rooms ripple outward, affecting lives on a tangible scale. The inclusion of these narratives reinforces the interconnectedness of systemic, technical, and human layers within the story, emphasizing the holistic consequences of each decision. Simultaneously, minor yet pivotal characters, such as soldiers stationed in distant regions, contribute to the narrative tension, demonstrating that crisis resolution requires coordinated effort across multiple operational theaters. As the missile approaches its target, the narrative shifts into heightened suspense. Walker and Reeves continue real-time monitoring, adjusting projections and coordinating with operational units to evaluate potential interception strategies. The Situation Room sequences are intercut with the President's deliberations, creating a sustained rhythm of tension and moral ambiguity. Each cut and transition is purposeful, reflecting both the passage of time and the urgency of unfolding events. The audience is placed in a position of simultaneous awareness of technical, operational, and ethical dimensions, heightening engagement and empathy. The narrative deliberately withholds simplistic resolution, ensuring that each decision carries weight and ambiguity, mirroring the uncertainty inherent in real-world high-stakes scenarios. Climactic sequences involve a convergence of procedural mastery, strategic judgment, and ethical deliberation. The missile's trajectory is confirmed, and operational contingencies are fully executed, requiring split-second coordination and high-level authorization. Captain Walker emerges as a central figure whose expertise ensures the accurate relay of critical information, while the President navigates the complex moral terrain of potential action and consequence. The interplay of these perspectives underscores the narrative's primary theme, that effective crisis resolution depends on both technical skill and ethical judgment. Every decision is portrayed with consequence, and even successful interventions carry emotional and psychological reverberations, reinforcing the film's commitment to realism and human complexity. Following the climax, the narrative transitions into a detailed aftermath, exploring both operational outcomes and personal reflections. Characters process the immediate consequences of their decisions, reflecting a range of responses including relief, exhaustion, and lingering ethical uncertainty. The President's final sequences emphasize contemplation of systemic and moral responsibility, highlighting that leadership carries enduring consequences beyond the immediate resolution of crisis. Secondary characters similarly navigate the personal and professional impact of the events, illustrating that systemic success does not preclude emotional or moral complexity. These narrative choices reinforce the film's thematic depth, ensuring that the resolution is as psychologically and ethically resonant as it is narratively satisfying. The final segments provide a reflective denouement, situating the events within broader ethical, political, and human contexts. The film emphasizes that while procedural rigor, technological expertise, and leadership acumen can mitigate immediate risk, the complexity of human systems and ethical responsibility remains constant. The closing sequences integrate visual, auditory, and narrative motifs established throughout the film, providing a cohesive resolution that reinforces both thematic continuity and cinematic immersion. By concluding with reflective, rather than purely sensational, imagery, Bigelow ensures that the audience retains an appreciation for the enduring human and moral dimensions of crisis management. The character arcs are fully realized in this final act. Captain Walker's evolution from precise operator to ethically and strategically adaptive leader embodies the narrative's emphasis on the interdependence of skill, judgment, and resilience. The President's journey, from deliberative authority to reflective leader, illustrates the persistent tension between ethical responsibility and operational necessity. Secondary characters' arcs, though less prominent, reinforce the systemic and human interconnection central to the narrative, the decisions of individuals within institutional frameworks reverberate widely, influencing outcomes and emotional landscapes across multiple levels of society. This layered approach to character development, coupled with meticulous procedural accuracy and real-time narrative structure, exemplifies the film's integration of human psychology, ethical reflection, and cinematic suspense. In synthesizing the narrative, thematic, and technical elements of A House of Dynamite, it becomes evident that the film functions on multiple levels, engaging viewers emotionally, intellectually, and ethically. The story's real-time structure, combined with meticulous attention to procedural realism, situates the audience within an immersive simulation of crisis management. By simultaneously depicting technical, operational, and ethical dimensions, the film transforms suspense from a superficial cinematic device into a profound exploration of human judgment under pressure. The tension is sustained not through visual spectacle alone, but through the interlocking complexities of decision-making, highlighting the interplay between institutional protocols, technological precision, and moral responsibility. This approach allows the audience to engage with the narrative not merely as passive observers but as active participants, considering the implications of each choice alongside the characters who inhabit these high-stakes environments. Thematic exploration is central to the film's enduring impact. Ethical responsibility emerges as a recurring motif, explored through both character arcs and narrative structure. The President's deliberations, Captain Walker's operational precision, and the supporting ensemble's multifaceted contributions illustrate the moral and cognitive weight borne by individuals in positions of authority. By portraying decisions as simultaneously technically informed and ethically fraught, the film foregrounds the necessity of integrating moral judgment with operational execution. It interrogates the tension between protocol and conscience, illustrating that adherence to procedure alone is insufficient when outcomes carry existential consequences. This emphasis on ethical discernment is reinforced through narrative strategies such as real-time escalation, multi-perspective cross-cutting, and the depiction of cascading consequences, creating a layered ethical landscape that resonates with audiences across diverse cultural and professional contexts. Psychological tension is equally significant, with characters depicted as grappling with both cognitive demands and emotional strain. The film carefully calibrates moments of intense operational focus with sequences of private reflection, allowing audiences to appreciate the human dimension of decision-making. Captain Walker's inner deliberations, combined with the President's private contemplations, create a dynamic interplay of rational analysis and emotional reflection, reinforcing the psychological realism of the narrative. Secondary characters' experiences, including those responsible for civilian logistics and military coordination, further illustrate the broader spectrum of psychological impact, highlighting that crisis management extends beyond leadership to encompass all individuals involved in the operational chain. This holistic depiction of cognitive and emotional engagement enhances the film's resonance, ensuring that its suspense and ethical weight are grounded in authentic human experience. Cinematically, the film exemplifies the integration of form and function. Fraser's cinematography, combined with precise editing and immersive sound design, creates a sensory environment that mirrors narrative tension. The interplay of close-ups, wide shots, and dynamic camera movement reinforces both procedural rigor and character psychology. Sound cues, including ambient hums, alarm signals, and strategic silences, provide continuous emotional and cognitive context, enhancing engagement and emphasizing the stakes inherent in each decision. Visual effects, particularly in representing missile trajectories and operational data, serve not merely aesthetic purposes but as narrative tools, translating abstract technical information into comprehensible and dramatic forms. This integration of visual, auditory, and narrative elements exemplifies Bigelow's commitment to crafting a cinematic experience in which technical precision, thematic depth, and emotional resonance are inseparable. The film's cultural and educational significance cannot be overstated. By depicting the intricacies of high-stakes decision-making and the human dimension of crisis management, A House of Dynamite has influenced discourse across academic, policy, and public spheres. Educational programs in leadership, ethics, and crisis management have utilized the film as a case study, demonstrating the utility of cinematic storytelling in elucidating complex real-world concepts. Policy discussions surrounding nuclear risk, international security, and ethical governance have similarly drawn upon the film's narrative to illustrate the consequences of decision-making under uncertainty. The film's ability to function simultaneously as entertainment, pedagogical tool, and cultural artifact underscores its multidimensional impact, bridging cinematic art with practical and intellectual application. Awards and critical recognition have further solidified the film's position as a landmark work. Accolades for direction, screenplay, performance, and technical achievement validate the film's craftsmanship while highlighting its narrative and thematic ambition. International recognition demonstrates the global resonance of the film's ethical and psychological explorations, affirming its relevance across diverse cultural and geopolitical contexts. Critics have praised the film's avoidance of conventional spectacle in favor of intellectual and emotional engagement, emphasizing the innovation of sustaining suspense through human and ethical complexity rather than purely visual or kinetic means. This recognition not only honors the achievements of the filmmakers and cast but also reinforces the broader significance of cinematic storytelling as a vehicle for ethical, psychological, and cultural reflection. The long-term impact of A House of Dynamite is evident in its influence on subsequent filmmaking, public discourse, and educational practices. In cinema, the film has inspired a shift toward suspense and drama derived from procedural and ethical complexity, encouraging filmmakers to explore human judgment, institutional dynamics, and moral dilemmas as central sources of tension. In public discourse, the film has prompted discussions about leadership, responsibility, and systemic vulnerability, contributing to a more nuanced understanding of the interplay between human agency and structural constraints. Educational institutions and policy organizations have integrated the film into training and analytical frameworks, utilizing its detailed depiction of operational realism and ethical complexity as a practical tool for teaching leadership, crisis management, and decision-making under pressure. The synthesis of narrative, technical, and ethical elements ensures that the film's relevance extends far beyond entertainment, functioning as a reference point for intellectual, professional, and cultural engagement. Ultimately, A House of Dynamite exemplifies the potential of contemporary cinema to operate as a multidimensional artifact. Its integration of technical precision, narrative sophistication, ethical depth, and psychological realism creates a cinematic experience that is immersive, thought-provoking, and emotionally resonant. The film's real-time structure, ensemble character perspectives, and procedural fidelity reinforce its thematic emphasis on human agency, moral responsibility, and the complexity of leadership under pressure. By sustaining tension through intellectual and emotional engagement rather than conventional spectacle, the film achieves a rare synthesis of artistry, ethical exploration, and cultural significance. Its reception, both critical and public, underscores its capacity to influence discourse, inspire reflection, and educate audiences on the intricacies of human decision-making within high-stakes systems. As a work of cinematic achievement, A House of Dynamite stands as a definitive exploration of the interplay between human judgment, ethical responsibility, and systemic complexity in the contemporary world. In conclusion, the film's narrative intricacy, technical accomplishment, and thematic depth collectively affirm its status as a landmark achievement in modern cinema. The characters' journeys, procedural authenticity, ethical dilemmas, and psychological tension create an immersive and intellectually engaging experience that resonates with diverse audiences. Its influence spans cinematic technique, cultural reflection, educational application, and public discourse, demonstrating the profound potential of film to illuminate human experience, ethical responsibility, and systemic complexity. A House of Dynamite is not only a masterful political thriller but a comprehensive study of human resilience, moral deliberation, and the intricate interplay between technology, procedure, and judgment. Its legacy will endure both within cinematic art and as a reference point for understanding leadership, ethics, and crisis management in a complex and uncertain world. The film ultimately challenges audiences to consider the weight of responsibility, the fragility of systems, and the courage required to act decisively under extraordinary pressure, ensuring its relevance and impact for years to come. A House of Dynamite is a contemporary political thriller directed by Kathryn Bigelow, a filmmaker renowned for her ability to craft tension-laden narratives that blend technical precision with profound psychological insight. Produced in the United States, the film situates itself within the sphere of global political cinema, exploring the intersection of leadership, ethical responsibility, and systemic crisis management in the context of a nuclear threat. The production is a collaboration among major studios and technical consultants, ensuring that both cinematic artistry and operational realism are represented authentically. The film stars Idris Elba as the President of the United States and Rebecca Ferguson as Captain Olivia Walker, supported by a distinguished ensemble cast including Jared Harris, Tracy Letts, Gabriel Basso, Moses Ingram, and Jonah Hauer-King. The screenplay, praised for its intricate structure and precise dialogue, meticulously interweaves multiple perspectives and real-time narrative elements to sustain suspense while providing insight into human judgment under extreme pressure. The visual and auditory design of the film, led by cinematographer Greg Fraser and a dedicated sound team, further reinforces this immersive experience, creating a narrative environment in which technical, operational, and ethical dimensions coalesce seamlessly. Upon its premiere at the 82nd Venice International Film Festival, A House of Dynamite was met with immediate critical acclaim. Audiences described a visceral sense of tension and immediacy, noting that the real-time pacing extended the anxiety beyond the screen and into the theater environment. Critics highlighted Bigelow's skillful direction, emphasizing the film's ability to generate suspense without relying on conventional spectacle. Viewers from North America, Europe, and parts of Asia engaged deeply with the narrative, analyzing the realism of missile tracking sequences, the ethical dilemmas faced by the president and operational personnel, and the emotional weight carried by each decision. Social media and online forums became platforms for debate, with discussions ranging from procedural accuracy to moral responsibility. The Netflix release on October 24, 2025, expanded the film's reach to millions of households globally, with analytics indicating particularly high engagement among adults aged 25 to 55, though younger viewers were also drawn to the film's intense performances and immersive technical realism. The film's commercial performance, while deliberately limited in theatrical release, reflected strong audience engagement. In metropolitan centers such as New York, London, and Los Angeles, multiple repeat viewings were reported, suggesting that the film's complex narrative encouraged audiences to revisit sequences to fully comprehend the interplay of operational detail and ethical decision-making. Internationally, reception varied depending on cultural and geopolitical context. In countries with heightened awareness of military strategy, such as South Korea and Japan, audiences praised the accuracy of missile tracking, radar simulations, and interagency communication. European critics focused on ethical and psychological dimensions, particularly the president's moral deliberations and the emotional toll of leadership decisions. Across all regions, the film succeeded in engaging audiences intellectually and emotionally, bridging entertainment with reflective discourse on contemporary global security concerns. Critical analysis underscores the meticulous craftsmanship of the film. Cinematographer Greg Fraser employs a muted color palette dominated by grays, blues, and occasional red accents to convey the sterile, high-stakes environment of command centers while visually reinforcing the gravity of the narrative. Tight close-ups on operators' faces, hands, and eyes scanning monitors communicate the precision required for decision-making, while wide shots establish spatial context and scale. The editing sustains real-time tension, cross-cutting between multiple operational perspectives to maintain rhythm and urgency. Sound design, incorporating hums of technology, intermittent alarms, and carefully timed silences, heightens psychological immersion and underscores the moral weight of leadership decisions. Visual effects, including missile trajectories and operational overlays, are rendered with precision to enhance narrative comprehension rather than spectacle, reflecting Bigelow's commitment to procedural and technical fidelity. Performance analysis reveals a layered approach to character portrayal. Idris Elba's president embodies authority tempered with vulnerability, balancing decisiveness with moral introspection. Rebecca Ferguson's Captain Olivia Walker conveys technical mastery and emotional resilience, illustrating the human dimension of procedural expertise. Supporting performances, including Jared Harris's Secretary of Defense, Tracy Letts' National Security Advisor, and Gabriel Basso's Lieutenant Commander Robert Reeves, contribute to a network portrayal of interdependent decision-makers, emphasizing that crisis resolution is a collaborative endeavor. The ensemble's cohesion reflects the film's thematic focus on systemic interdependence, illustrating that both individual judgment and coordinated action are essential in mitigating existential threats. Narratively, the film's real-time structure is pivotal. By confining key events to an 18-minute window during which a nuclear threat emerges, the film generates sustained tension and emphasizes the immediacy of decision-making. Cross-cutting between operational rooms, the President's office, and secondary narratives depicting FEMA coordination and military readiness illustrates the complexity of high-stakes crises, highlighting the interconnection of human, institutional, and technological factors. Ethical dilemmas are central, presenting scenarios in which decisions are fraught with potential catastrophe, emphasizing that operational success does not absolve moral responsibility. The narrative's climax, involving the verification of the missile trajectory and the execution of strategic contingencies, showcases the interplay of skill, judgment, and ethical consideration, culminating in a resolution that balances technical success with ongoing moral reflection. Character arcs are developed in parallel with procedural narratives. Captain Walker evolves from a precise operator to an ethically adaptive leader, while the President navigates the dual burdens of strategic authority and moral accountability. Secondary characters, from FEMA operatives to soldiers in the field, illustrate the systemic consequences of decision-making, emphasizing the ripple effects of choices made under pressure. These arcs reinforce the film's thematic exploration of interdependence, responsibility, and human resilience, illustrating that effective crisis management requires both technical precision and ethical awareness. The resolution underscores psychological realism, portraying relief, exhaustion, and lingering moral contemplation, ensuring that the narrative conclusion remains emotionally and intellectually resonant. The film's cultural significance extends into educational and professional domains. Academic programs in ethics, leadership, and crisis management have incorporated the film into curricula, using its realistic depiction of high-stakes decision-making to facilitate discussion and analysis. Policy analysts and think tanks have referenced the narrative in discussions on nuclear risk, command responsibility, and crisis preparedness. Public discourse, encompassing social media, editorial commentary, and professional analysis, engages with the film's ethical, psychological, and operational questions, reflecting its capacity to stimulate sustained debate and reflection. The integration of cinematic storytelling, technical realism, and ethical inquiry ensures that the film functions as both an artistic achievement and a tool for intellectual engagement. Awards recognition has solidified the film's impact. Nominations at the Venice International Film Festival for the Golden Lion, along with accolades for direction, screenplay, ensemble performance, cinematography, and sound design, reflect critical acknowledgement of both artistic and technical excellence. International festival recognition further highlights the global resonance of the film's ethical and psychological explorations. Critics have praised Bigelow's restraint in sustaining suspense through narrative and ethical complexity rather than traditional action-driven spectacle, establishing a benchmark for political thrillers that balance entertainment with intellectual depth. The long-term influence of A House of Dynamite is manifest across cinema, education, and public discourse. In filmmaking, the film has inspired a shift toward suspense derived from ethical and procedural complexity, encouraging narratives that foreground human judgment and systemic interdependence. In public and academic discourse, the film serves as a case study for leadership, crisis management, and ethical deliberation, demonstrating the practical utility of cinematic storytelling in illustrating complex real-world concepts. Its integration of technical accuracy, narrative sophistication, and ethical exploration ensures enduring relevance, functioning as both cultural artifact and intellectual resource. In synthesizing these elements, it is evident that A House of Dynamite achieves a rare fusion of artistry, intellectual engagement, and cultural significance. Its meticulous attention to procedural realism, layered character development, real-time narrative structure, and ethical interrogation creates a cinematic experience that is immersive, thought-provoking, and emotionally resonant. The interplay of technology, human judgment, and moral responsibility forms the narrative backbone, while cinematography, sound, editing, and visual effects reinforce thematic and psychological immersion. Characters' arcs, narrative pacing, and the sustained ethical tension collectively ensure that the film functions as both entertainment and reflective study, illustrating the stakes inherent in leadership under pressure and the enduring consequences of high-level decision-making. Ultimately, A House of Dynamite is a definitive exploration of the intersection between human agency, systemic complexity, and ethical responsibility in contemporary society. Its narrative, technical, and thematic sophistication positions it as a landmark achievement in political thrillers, providing audiences with a layered understanding of both procedural intricacy and moral weight. The film's legacy encompasses cinematic innovation, cultural discourse, educational application, and ethical reflection, establishing it as a benchmark for future explorations of leadership, crisis management, and human resilience in the face of existential threats. By sustaining tension through psychological, ethical, and operational depth rather than conventional spectacle, Kathryn Bigelow has crafted a work that endures not only as a masterpiece of cinematic craft but as an enduring lens through which audiences may examine the challenges, responsibilities, and consequences inherent in human decision-making at the highest levels. Its resonance will continue to influence filmmakers, educators, analysts, and audiences alike, ensuring that A House of Dynamite remains a definitive study of suspense, morality, and human agency in the modern era. Overview: A House of Dynamite is a contemporary political thriller directed by Kathryn Bigelow, set in the United States and exploring leadership, ethical responsibility, and systemic crisis management during a nuclear threat. Produced by major studios with technical consultants, the film emphasizes procedural authenticity and immersive realism. Idris Elba stars as the President, Rebecca Ferguson as Captain Olivia Walker, supported by Jared Harris, Tracy Letts, Gabriel Basso, Moses Ingram, and Jonah Hauer-King. The screenplay intricately weaves real-time narrative and multiple perspectives, emphasizing suspense, ethical dilemmas, and operational precision. Cinematography by Greg Fraser and an immersive sound design amplify tension, creating a visually and psychologically compelling cinematic experience. Plot summary: the narrative unfolds over an 18-minute window, beginning with the detection of a radar anomaly that escalates into a confirmed missile threat. Captain Walker, the principal data analyst, is introduced, managing operational precision under extreme pressure. The Situation Room sequences depict the President, advisors, and technical personnel balancing strategic decisions with ethical imperatives. Parallel narratives, including FEMA coordination and field operations, emphasize the human and systemic consequences of high-stakes decision-making. As the missile approaches, the real-time narrative intensifies, highlighting the interplay of procedural expertise, moral deliberation, and operational coordination. The climax resolves the threat while retaining ethical and emotional resonance, followed by a reflective denouement illustrating the psychological and moral impact of decisions on all characters. Character arcs: Captain Olivia Walker evolves from a technically precise operator to an ethically adaptive leader, exemplifying the interplay of skill and judgment. The President navigates moral responsibility and strategic authority, balancing national security with ethical imperatives. Supporting characters, including advisors, technical personnel, and emergency responders, highlight systemic interdependence, illustrating that effective crisis management relies on both individual competence and coordinated collaboration. Each character arc reinforces the film's thematic focus on ethical responsibility, human resilience, and operational precision. Technical execution: Greg Fraser's cinematography employs a muted color palette and strategic camera angles, balancing close-ups of character focus with wide shots of operational spaces. Editing sustains real-time tension through cross-cutting multiple perspectives. Sound design integrates ambient hums, alarms, and silences to emphasize psychological tension and cognitive weight. Visual effects, including missile trajectories and operational overlays, serve narrative clarity, translating abstract technical data into comprehensible visual language. The meticulous integration of these technical elements reinforces thematic depth and narrative immersion. Themes and philosophical underpinnings: ethical responsibility is central, explored through dilemmas faced by the President, Captain Walker, and supporting personnel. The film interrogates the tension between procedural adherence and moral judgment, emphasizing that human agency remains critical in high-stakes scenarios. Psychological tension is depicted through private reflections and operational pressure, creating a layered exploration of leadership under duress. The narrative fosters audience engagement with ethical, operational, and emotional stakes, transforming suspense into an exploration of human resilience, judgment, and responsibility. Cultural significance. The film has influenced academic, professional, and public discourse. Leadership, ethics, and crisis management courses utilize it as a case study, while policymakers and strategic analysts reference it in discussions of nuclear risk and decision-making under uncertainty. Public debates and social media discussions focus on ethical dilemmas, procedural plausibility, and moral accountability, demonstrating the film's capacity to foster reflection and engagement across diverse contexts. Awards and critical recognition. The film received nominations at the Venice International Film Festival for the Golden Lion and multiple awards for direction, screenplay, ensemble performance, cinematography, and sound design. International festival recognition emphasizes its global resonance. Critics have lauded Bigelow's ability to sustain suspense through ethical and psychological complexity rather than conventional action, establishing the film as a benchmark for political thrillers. Impact and legacy. A House of Dynamite has influenced cinematic approaches to suspense, encouraging narratives derived from ethical and procedural complexity. Its educational impact spans ethics, leadership, and crisis management programs, while public and professional discourse has engaged with its ethical and operational lessons. The film's integration of technical accuracy, narrative sophistication, and ethical exploration ensures its long-term relevance as both a cultural artifact and intellectual resource. Narrative resolution. The climax resolves the missile threat through coordinated technical expertise and ethical decision-making, while the aftermath emphasizes psychological and moral consequences. Characters reflect on their decisions, underscoring the persistent tension between operational success and ethical responsibility. The film concludes with a reflective denouement, reinforcing its thematic focus on human resilience, moral judgment, and systemic interdependence. Conclusion. A House of Dynamite exemplifies contemporary cinema's ability to merge artistry, intellectual depth, and cultural relevance. Its real-time structure, procedural realism, character depth, and ethical exploration create a layered, immersive experience. The film's legacy encompasses cinematic innovation, cultural discourse, educational application, and ethical reflection, establishing it as a landmark achievement in political thrillers. It challenges audiences to consider the weight of responsibility, the complexity of systems, and the courage required for decisive action under extreme pressure, ensuring enduring relevance across cinematic, intellectual, and cultural domains.